Hey there, it's Wardy, and we're back at it with our latest Big Mets update segment, this time April 19th, 2025, in which we have a plethora of topics to get into, as I'm recording this the night prior, per usual here, this time after the Mets concluded what was nothing short of an electric, a truly an amazing walk-off victory for the Mets, where Francisco Lindor had everything to say about it in that key win against the Cardinals by a final score of 5-4 there in the ninth inning. Because in today's show, we're going to further expand on those key takeaways from last night's victory, headlined by Francisco Lindor, and in particular, the continued improvement of guys like Mark Vientos and Brett Baty so far this season. We're going to get into those three in particular, and then from there, we're going to expand on what is happening with the Mets in the farm, because not only do we have our usual prospect report to get into, but we have to get into how great of an outing Brandon Sproat had, easily his best start so far this year in AAA, pairing that with the latest that we have on Francisco Alvarez. Jose Urena, who is an arm that will certainly impact the Mets at some point this year. How did he fare in his latest outing? They're in a starter role, actually, for AAA Syracuse, along with all the latest here in Mets land that we're about to get into. So thank you guys kindly for smashing that like and subscribe on as you first chime in. Let me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below, especially from Francisco Lindor's home run accolades that we're going to further expand on here in just a second. Folks, the Mets season has officially started, which means it's time to shout out our amazing sponsor here at SeatGeek, because not only are they going to have me covered, but they're going to have each and every one of you covered with all of your ticketing needs throughout the course of the 162. Because it's one thing to be the #1 rated ticketing app with over 28 million downloads and 70,000+ active events to choose from, whether it's Mets games, different team games, whether you're looking at concert tickets, comedy show tickets, anything ticket related, SeatGeek has you covered. And just to give you guys further proof, I have been utilizing SeatGeek well before we actually had them here as a ticketing sponsor. And the best part of it all, everybody, is that they have a grading scale, a true system in their app that's limited on the best in the game, in my humble opinion. As you guys see beside me, we're going to take a look at some future Mets games, specifically against the Philadelphia Phillies right around mid to late April. And as you guys see the ticket prices, you see a range of 1 to 10 on the scale, meaning how good it is for a bang for your buck, and a color coordination scale, meaning if it's green, that you should really definitely get those tickets because it's a great bang for your buck. And if it's red, if it's more in the rating of 1 to 5, they're probably overpriced, and you could probably do better elsewhere, still in the SeatGeek app, but somewhere else when you're looking to acquire tickets in said app. So that's what I love so much about them. They make it so easy, so simplistic to give me a great idea as to what I should be pouncing on, especially when some awesome deals present themselves throughout the course of the 162 there in the SeatGeek app. So what does this mean, everybody? It means that if you haven't already, you got to check out our awesome friends, because they're going to have you covered, again, with Mets tickets or whatever you need ticket-wise throughout the entire course of the year, which is why I implore each and every one of you, if you haven't already, to check out our amazing promo code at WardyNYM by clicking the link down below the description of this video. Shout out to SeatGeek, as always, for being an amazing sponsor on the platform, everybody. But seriously, use WardyNYM as your promo code. Once you click it, it's hyperlinked too, so if you have the app downloaded, it's going to tell you automatically that that percentage was added, and you're going to get some money off your next ticketing purchase, all thanks to our awesome friends here at SeatGeek. Shout out to them once more. We appreciate them greatly. Alrighty, folks, so let's kickstart this conversation by further expanding on what was so brilliant with Francisco Lindor, not just this past night, but just to start the season in general, everybody. And I also want to give credit where credit's due, because I'm usually a purist. I love Gary, Keith, and Ron, and I don't like anything deviating away from that when it comes to my Mets coverage of what I'm hearing play-by-play. But Steve Gelbs did a fantastic job on the home run call, specifically for Lindor there to walk it off, so I want to further shed flowers that way, rightfully so, the same way that I'm so excited to share with each and every one of you how Howie Rose went about his call that you guys are going to listen and hear, right now.
Hits it high in the air, deep to right field, towards the Coca-Cola corner, and gone! Put it in the books! Francisco Lindor with a game-winning home run on no doubter, as he hits it several rows back into the upper deck in right field, the Coca-Cola corner. Lindor's second home run of the year. The Mets have won the ball game 5-4. They're out of the dugout waiting for Francisco. He flings his helmet down, and the Mets go to work, jumping up and down, getting a little piece of Lindor, trying to take it easy on him. He's the captain, but he's got big bushy hair to absorb all the blows. But he delivered the biggest blow.
What a call by Howie. As always, he always does nothing short of a fantastic job there. So I want to further expand on that. The same way we're now going to further expand on everything you guys need to hear on the Francisco Lindor front. What a game for him. He might have only had one hit, but it mattered most, to say the least. Lindor goes 1 for 5 with that huge home run to right that we saw. And the craziest part is that, as long as I'm not mistaken, Mothman, who is a subscriber and a longtime follower here on the platform that chimes into all of our post-game shows, as we broke down our post-game segment this past night, breaking everything down inning by inning, our initial raw reactions. Check it out. The only downside with our post-game is that I was lagging a bit because literally we had north of 1,000 people in the chat and the stream couldn't catch up. It was going bananas like the entire time. That was the only reason why we were lagging as hard as we were. But Mothman, who chimed in the chat right away, stated that he was at the Mets game 1 and 2 actually got the Lindor home run ball, and he changed his PFP quickly to showcase the baseball. So I think he's feeling pretty confident saying that that was his. If it actually was his, if he retrieved it, I still can't get over that. What a story to have that be a part of the WardyNYM platform in some way, shape, or form in our post-game show. But as you guys see, Lindor not only had himself a towering home run, but he made history, everybody. Listen to this. Now that Francisco Lindor has hit 250 home runs for his career, he joins an illustrious list of the following shortstops who have also reached that same feat. And they consist of Derek Jeter, Hanley Ramirez, Miguel Tejada, and Cal Ripken Jr. If you ask me, that's a pretty darn good list. Francisco Lindor is not only on pace to be a sure first ballot Hall of Famer. Hopefully the Mets can win a chip or two with him at minimum over the next couple years, right? Hopefully starting this year. We all know he's going to go into Cooperstown in a Mets uni, and it's stuff like this that really has me so juiced up, where you think you're in truly a playoff atmosphere, but it was October 18th there at Citi Field. I can't remember the last time that the crowd was that packed for a series in April, and also jumping for joy the way that they were rocking the entire game long and the nice back and forth between the Mets and Cardinals in game 2 of their 3-game set. But not only did Lindor hit his 250th home run, he's also the first New York Met ever to record his first walk-off being in the home run fashion. Nothing short of tremendous. I cannot get over what we got from Francisco Lindor and this outing, everybody. And I think what we need to further emphasize is what Lindor not just did here, but what he has been doing so far this season. This is the same Lindor that entered this past night's game with an over 400 average and over 1,000 OPS at Citi Field to begin the season. And the reason why that's notable is because this is the same Francisco Lindor that's usually notorious to getting off to a really slow start in a Mets uniform. And while I understand that he didn't have a terribly slow start for the Mets in 2022, I still think that this trumps what we've gotten from any previous year, whether it's 2021, 2022, or 2023. The way that Lindor is immediately impacting the team, the way that the Mets are 7-1 in games that he leads off the game with a hit so far this season. Yes, that is a fact. It's so cool to say. And now to see him have his first walk-off bomb in a New York Mets uniform, a magical moment, towering that one to right, everybody. He's now up to 263 averaging at over 700 OPS on the season. And I have a strong feeling that in the case of Lindor, he is going to continue to lead the way for this Mets team. And then once we get guys like Juan Soto, who finally had himself an RBI single for the Mets this past night, and others in this lineup, obviously the Polar Bear has been doing his thing, but to have this three-headed monster working on all full cylinders is going to be nothing short of magic for this Mets team. I cannot get over the fact that, guys, mind you, that Francisco Lindor, and I would like to clarify, I was wrong by saying that he's the first Met ever to have his first walk-off be a home run, because he's had previous walk-offs for the Mets before. This was just the first home run. What is the first, however, for Francisco Lindor is the following. He became the first player ever in Major League Baseball history to have his 250th home run be in a walk-off fashion. So that is where Lindor is now in a class of his own. Shout out to Mr. Smile, not only for being the true unsung captain for this team, but picking right off where he left off last year with that MVP mentality and the approach at the plate. He doesn't look lost. He's actually knowing what he's doing, batting from the left side of the plate, something that he had no clue how to comprehend at all for the first month and a half last year, pretty much up until he was put in the leadoff spot. And now Mr. Smile is continuing to do exactly what you would hope for as a diehard Mets fan, the way that we are all beyond ecstatic. And yes, that's an understatement. But to further expand what we got from Francisco Lindor, let's get into also what we got from other guys in this matchup, including Mark Vientos, who had himself another big day. Mark Vientos has now recorded hits in what feels like at least 4 or 5 straight games now when he's been starting out there. Vientos 2 for 4 with a no-doubt home run that we saw to left. That was massive at the time, and that was a fastball. Mind you, almost have got the chin, and Buddy pulled that and took that bad boy to left the way that he did. Vientos now has home runs and back-to-back games for the Mets. He had a home run opposite field 2 nights ago, had himself that home run left that we saw this past night at the time of recording this, and Vientos continues to slowly but surely climb his way up from the rut that he had himself in to begin this season. A lot of people were critiquing Vientos early and saying that I don't even want him on the team, which just shows you how many fair weather casual fans we have, because folks, trust me, there's more than just a sample size of a week or so span across the major league season for you to then make the decision and say, okay, I'm going to write him off now. No one should be writing off Vientos. He's absolutely destined to have himself a 30-plus home run season. As long as he stays healthy, I have the utmost confidence that he will do that, as he himself is tapping more and more into that confidence. And now that Vientos is finally starting to get that home run swing in his favor, my question to you, everybody, is as follows for the comments down below. Would you like to see Vientos make sure he gets consistent daily reps at third base? Or are you not opposed to Vientos flip-flopping from third base to DH based on matchups? That way it further allows the ability for the Mets to not only play guys like Luisangel Acuna, but also guys and Brett Baty. Because listen, guys, whether you love it or hate it, no matter how much you've been a Brady stan or an anti-Baty supporter, what is true is that Brett Baty is playing his way to try to stay on this Mets roster. He knows that the clock is ticking with Jeff McNeil here breathing down his neck, knowing Jeff is going to return within the next week or so. And he's saying, you know what? All right, it's time for me to start stepping up. And Baty is doing it at the most pivotal time. He gets starts in back-to-back games for the Mets over Luisangel Acuna, when that same Acuna was a lightning rod on the base pass, coming in as a pinch runner 2 nights ago, where he came in for Baty after pulling a double. Then this past night, even though Baty did pull a double that we saw there, is now up to 217 average. And for context, that isn't far off from Juan Soto's batting average right now. So Brett Baty, who would have thought April 19th, 2025, at the time of you guys watching this video, more than likely, that Juan Soto and Brett Baty would be closer in batting average than what we could ever fathom before. It's crazy. But Baty's doing his thing, and after Vientos hit himself that second hit of the game this past night, that allowed Acuna to come in. He stole a bag, sadly was caught at third, even though Arenado made a great attempt, and sadly, we saw Acuna just off the bag in time. It was a hard play to overturn. But regardless of Acuna's playing time, we know that in order for Baty to stay on this roster, he has to continue to perform. And now Brett the Met, or Brett the Hitman, Brett Bonds Baty, whatever nickname you want to give Brett is fine by me, but he now has himself a 5-game hitting streak and is finally starting to hit his stride. The most notable thing for Baty, in my humble opinion, is not only the fact that he's hitting in 5 consecutive games going out there, but the defense has been more than proficient for the most part. He did bobble play a little bit that we saw this past night, but he gets a pass, wasn't an error. Baty at second and third base has been fine for the most part. And on top of it all, shout out to Baty for pulling a Luisangel Acuna. Gets on with a walk for his first time he gets on base in this past night's game. And then he steals a bag promptly. So he's showcasing the speed, he's showcasing the athleticism, and he's showcasing his worth for this Mets team. And as I broke down in last night's post-game show for you guys to check out whenever you get a chance, and have been in previous content, there is a greater reality at the time of us recording this and speaking right now that the Mets, once Jeff McNeil comes back from his rehab stint, could not only be on this roster getting time and left, center, and second base, but with a corresponding move just being Jose Azocar, meaning that Brett Baty and Luisangel Acuna and Jeff McNeil would all be on this roster at the same time. It's not a guarantee to happen, but with the way that Baty's playing right now, and as long as Acuna doesn't fall off a complete cliff the next couple days, which I don't see how that happens, but he's playing electric right now, and if it does happen, I do blame Mendoza for it, for not starting him in back-to-back days after he's continued to perform well. The last time Acuna started, he had that game-tying RBI with 2 outs for the Mets, pulled to the left side after striking out 3 times, as the Mets ultimately faltered to the Twins in that series finale 4-3 in extra innings. But between Baty, Acuna, and McNeil, I am more than fine with this kind of being a rotation of guys getting reps at second base, guys getting reps in the outfield, guys getting reps at third base based on matchups. As Carlos Mendoza has said it already, the Mets are going to be creative with their versatility based on matchups this season, including even shifting guys like Brandon Nimmo to center, knowing that you want to see have one of Winker or McNeil in left field, because say you want a lefty-heavy lineup depending on the matchup that you have against the respective starting pitchers. So for Brett Baty, my question to each and every one of you is as follows for the comments down below. Do you think that Brett Baty is going to continue this pace to actually warrant the Mets keeping him on the roster, or do you think that he is still going to be the likely corresponding move once a guy like Jeff McNeil comes back from his rehab stint? Let us know in the comments down below, everybody. Thank you so much for exactly that. Now, let's go from talking about Jeff McNeil, Brett Baty, Luis Angel Acuna, to now getting into what is happening on the prospect end, everybody, because there is something very notable that just happened this past night that I want to share, and it's not just Francisco Lindor, but we're actually going to change this real quick. Going to change the graphic here live in real time for you guys to check out, because we're not cutting anything out of this. I'm recording this video at 1:20 a.m. I'm exhausted, so you guys are not going to get the fancy edits in this one when it comes to, you know, cutaways or anything like that. But what you are going to get is a nice little graphic here on the latest with Mr. Brandon Sproat, because Brandon Sproat, everybody, he has stepped up big time, and it's important that we have this discussion as to what was most notable for him in his latest outing there for, yes, the Syracuse Mets, because Sproat is a guy that we all know has fluctuated with his Syracuse Mets performance thus far, but this past night, folks, we got the best outing from him yet, and I apologize in advance for having this run on the loop as quick as it will, but Sproat only struck out one batter, so this is the only true highlight I have for you. But there's a reason behind the context of this I'd like to share. Brandon Sproat goes 6 innings, 76 pitch ball, 0 earned runs, 1 strikeout, 4 hits, and 1 walk here in his latest outing as the Syracuse Mets swept their doubleheader that we saw over this past day that we're going to expand on more in a second. But what stood out most about Brandon Sproat when we look at the arsenal here, I'm looking at this through Pitch Profiler right now, who does a great job on breaking down how Sproat's pitches are on the level of 100, meaning that if you're above 100, you're above league average, and if you're below 100, you're below league average. And what we saw Sproat do was have heavy sweeper usage. He was clearly working on his pitches outside of just his four seam as he threw his sweeper roughly 40% of the time, and we saw him at a 129 stuff plus, meaning that he was roughly 30% better than the average batter in baseball there that we saw in Syracuse with that pitch. The four seam fastball that he was sitting right around 96 on, touched 99 plus on the gun. Notable stuff as Sproat has hit his highest mark velocity wise so far this season as well in this outing at right around 24% of the arsenal. He graded a little below league average at 82 percentile, but that's kind of been the case with his four seam. Has a lot of life on it. It's just more so on the shape and the late movement behind it, and it's something that if he's going to leave middle, naturally he's going to get rocks, so he needs to make sure he's precise with his location. The sinker, 17% of the arsenal that we saw there, sitting right around 96.3 miles per hour. He was just below league average at 96 percentile. He was an above league average on his changeup at 107 that we saw sitting right around 90, and the slider that he threw not even 10% of the time in this outing, but at a 115 rating, so 15% above league average. Brandon Sproat has looked, honestly, not any better than this right now in Syracuse. And the big question with Brandon Sproat has been, well, how long is it going to take for him to finally get some consistency going at the AAA level to warrant the Mets having a call-up? And as I just broke down on the Sproat discussion 48 hours ago with special guest Samantha Croston in a previous Big Mets Updates video, it's our past one that has Sproat on the thumbnail, so check it out in case you guys haven't already. But we may note that we both would like to see Sproat obviously in the bigs as soon as this year, but he needs to find consistency and rhythm in his game, something that really hasn't been the case for most AAA starters the past couple years. Sproat needs to be that difference maker. He already has major league caliber stuff, and we know that once he gets to call the bigs, the hope and the belief is that he will not be sent down and that he will start what is hopefully going to be a dominant career there as an ace caliber starter for this Mets team. That is how much upside there is with Brandon Sproat, and then you got guys like Nolan McLean, Jonathan, Jack Weniger, who's really been standing out so far this year that we've seen in the minor leagues as well, and the list goes on. The Mets have a plethora of pitching prospects right now, far greater than what Buster Olney may have labeled that we saw halfway through the season last year when he, as a surprise to absolutely nobody, didn't do a proper scouting report, didn't look at the farm, and came to the conclusion that the Mets' future is actually going to get worse before it gets better. Talk about missing for 1,000. That is Buster Olney to a T. But now, guys, let's go from talking about Buster to getting into more on the farm report for each and every one of you, because we did see how Jose Urena performed, and I understand that Jose is not a prospect for this Mets team, but it's still a notable conversation to have, in my opinion, because Jose Urena is absolutely a guy that's going to positively impact the Mets this year, at least hopefully positively. And then the other game that the Mets had in their doubleheader victory, Syracuse Mets that is, Jose Urena went 4 innings of 2 hit, no earned run, no walk, 5 strikeout ball, 49 pitches, and 36 strikes. So you want to talk about being efficient. Yeah, Jose Urena looked good, as advertised, as good as one could hope. This is the same Jose Urena who had a solid season last year with a lot of innings with the Texas Rangers and had a sub-3 ERA in 64 2/3 innings as a reliever, but is a true swingman type as a multi-inning reliever or as a starter, which way the Mets feel comfortable in calling him up for when that's going to happen at some point this season. So Jose Urena looked good, but let's get into more on the latest here with the farm. Specifically, we're going to start here with Syracuse, and then we're going to work our way down from here, everybody, because as we see with the Syracuse Mets, they won their first game of 2, 3-0 over the Bisons, and the notables on the offensive end were Celestino getting his second home run of the year there in the outfield. Nico Goodrum had not one but 2 doubles in this matchup, and RBI-wise, we saw Celestino get in. Joey Meneses had himself an RBI. He's had a great start to Syracuse this year, and that's about it in this matchup offensively, as Brandon Sproat did a great job, and Genesis Cabrera had himself a clean inning of work. No hits, no earned runs, no walks, no nothing, with a pair of strikeouts. Cabrera is another reliever option that the Mets may call up at some point this year, specifically if, say, Danny Young struggles and they want a not a soft tossing, but a lesser leverage lefty option versus AJ Minter that has upside. Cabrera has that as he pitched north of 70 innings last year with the Toronto Blue Jays. But as we get into their other game, they won this one comfortably. 11-5 was the final. And offensively, we saw Donovan Walton not have one but 2 doubles in this matchup. And John Singleton continues the home run parade. Singleton, the Mets acquired a couple weeks ago on a signing, had a good solid sample size with the Astros last year at first base and was hitting some bombs. Singleton already a 2 home run game, already up to 4 on the season that we saw there. Billy Mack ripped his first home run of the year there. And we saw Celestino rip his third as well. So he's continuing to impress Celestino thus far. But Goodrum didn't have it. Singleton looked great. And offensively, outside of them, there's really nothing notable outside of Chris Williams, who went 1 for 2 at catcher with 2 RBIs and 2 runs scored. De Los Santos went 1 for 3 with a run scored 2. Jose Urena went for shutty. And sadly, the worst story of all for Syracuse is our guy, Tyler Zuber. If you guys don't know Tyler Zuber, Tyler did a fantastic job to begin the season thus far that we've seen in the minor leagues with his relief ability, and the Mets acquired him from the Tampa Bay Rays in a trade last year around the deadline. Zuber, who's notorious for tweeting throughout every Mets game, calling every good player a dog, which I love, he sadly got rocked, far and away his worst outing so far this year. He gave up 5 hits and 4 earned runs with no walks and a strikeout. ERA has absolutely ballooned to 7.11, 7-11, there you go, and 0.2 innings there for Tyler Zuber. So hopefully he rebounds his next time out there. Anthony Gose, who's had a good start this year as a reliever, a true southpaw option there in the bullpen. And Syracuse did give up a run, but had no walks and a pair of strikeouts, a 1.23 ERA. And Sean Reed-Foley thankfully finally had a clean inning of work while allowing a pair of hits, pair of strikeouts, no earned runs, no walks, but he still has an over 10 ERA thus far in Syracuse. So SRF has more work to do. And as we now get on to the Rummel Ponies, what's most notable is that they won their latest game 6-5 over the Fightin' Phils there in Reading. And the notables on the offensive end were Mr. Swaggerty ripping his double, his 4th of the year, and we saw Mr. Williams at third base rip himself his first triple of the season. Outside of that, Nick Morabito went 1 for 5 with a run scored. LaRusso at DH had a couple RBIs. We also saw Alex Ramirez had a couple RBIs as well. That's notable to see. And that's about it. And then pitching-wise, we saw Joander Suarez, who I like quite a bit, go 4.2 shutty, just making sure that that is in fact Joander, and it is. Joander, the Mets actually exposed in the Rule 5 draft this past year, and I was disappointed in that, as he impressed last year in the minor league, stayed in the organization, now just went 4.2 shutty, has yet to allow an earned run this season with 3 strikeouts. Great stuff there from Joander. But now, guys, let's get on to the Brooklyn Cyclones, because they won as well. The Mets had themselves a night. Outside of Port St. Lucie, every other Mets team in the farm and the Mets themselves actually won, which is really cool. The Cyclones shut out the Ironbirds 5-0 in their latest matchup, and the notables here start on the pitching end, everybody, because there is a pitcher that really stood out in this one, and that is going to be and I actually want to make sure I didn't miss this on the Romo Pony front also, folks. Francisco Alvarez had an 0 for 5 day at catcher, but did throw out a runner, and he will be getting another start for this upcoming Rebel Pony game. And then from there, the Mets will evaluate if they're going to call him up then for as soon as Sunday, or certainly that series beginning on Monday against the Philadelphia Phillies. But Alvarez is this close to returning the Mets. It will likely happen within the next 48 hours or so, so be on the lookout for that. And we, of course, will break it down the platform when that is in fact going to be the case. But let me get rid of here the highlights from this past night for a second, because I want to show you guys some highlights on the prospect front. And this has to do here, as you guys can see, with Zach Thornton. Zach Thornton had himself a really solid final line here for the Brooklyn Cyclones. The Southpaw goes 6 shutty, 8 strikeouts, 72 pitches with 50 strikes, and this put him up to 16 scoreless innings to start the season with just 2 walks and 22 strikeouts. Folks, we have a Southpaw to pay attention to. We have a really good-looking Southpaw to pay attention to. Zach Thornton, who the Mets just drafted over the past year or so, is looking absolutely fantastic to begin the season there with the Cyclones, and if he can keep this up, it will not be long before he ultimately moves up there to Double-A with the Rumble Ponies and joining other key pitchers there that we have at the moment. But great stuff there from Zach Thornton. He's been a standout in this 5-0 victory that we saw. Pitching-wise, we also saw Nunez, not Daniel Nunez, because he pitched the night before in Syracuse. Other Nunez went 2 shutty, and Garcia. Bullpen did great work there for Brooklyn. Carson Bench went 1 for 5 with an RBI that we saw. Jacob Reimer went 2 for 3 with 2 runs scored and an RBI and a couple walks. We saw Rafael Ortega, who's continuing his rehab stint there in Brooklyn with the Cyclones, 1 for 5 with an RBI. And the notables were that Smith at second base had himself a double. Hernandez had himself his second double of the year. Reimer had his third triple of the season and his second home run of the year that went in hand with his hits there. Mr. Suero at catcher did strike out 3 times, but got on base twice with walks. He still had a 325 average and a just under 1,300 OPS. That's just absolutely insane to see. And I apologize. I said Suero at catcher. I'm referring to Suero here in left field. Hernandez was there at catcher today in this matchup. Mercado at first base, 1 for 5 with an RBI. Smith, we just talked about him, and that about does it there for the Brooklyn Cyclones, everybody. So now let's get on to last but not least, the Port St. Lucie Mets, and what did they have to offer in their latest game as they lost what was an offensive slugfest, 14-9 there to the Tarpons. And the notables on the offensive end, we had Snyder there, ripping his second double of the season. Villavencio, and I'm going to probably butcher that name, his first double of the year. He also had a home run, and so did Colin Houck, and that's notable because Colin Houck had a piss poor, I'm going to be frank, had a really underwhelming first year in the minor leagues last year as a former first-round pick. That was a first-round pick under Billy Epler, if I'm not mistaken. And Houck, who's been pretty underwhelming, is off to a much better start this year. He's at a 205 average and over 700 OPS, which may seem underwhelming, but knowing how Houck struggled as much as he did last year, it's great to see him tap more in the home run power already this season and go more gap to gap. Marco Vargas had a solid game, 1 for 3 with 2 runs scored, a pair of walks, a pair of strikeouts. Ewing looked good, 1 for 4 with an RBI. He's at a 400 average, over 1,000 OPS. Curious how much longer him and Marco Vargas are going to stay in high A before they move up to Brooklyn with the Cyclones. Gutierrez at catcher. Davison is at a 303 average and a 664 OPS, and that's pretty much all she wrote outside of Willett there at first base with 3 RBIs there and going 1 for 4 and doing so. So those were the notables, everybody, that we saw. We also did see a notable on the pitching end, which is not as positive as previously, as Matthew Allen had his latest outing too. He went 1.2 innings of 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, is at a 2.25 ERA. This is Allen's first bad outing of the year there in St. Lucie, but that's okay because this is not about Allen really skyrocketing the farm at all this year, as it is to just have him be healthy, really fine-tune his arsenal, and see what the Mets can get out of him in a healthy 162, something that he hasn't done with the Mets since he was drafted by them back in 2019. So we're going to push that one aside. Hopefully Allen has a better start there next time he goes out. But again, I understand you're going to have a lot of ups and downs with him, who hasn't played really pro ball up until this season since he was drafted all those years ago, thanks to plenty injury. But folks, that is going to do it there for our latest farm report. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What is your biggest takeaway on everything that we broke down in this one, everybody? And before I let you go, let me make sure that I didn't miss anything notable in my notes here. I don't believe that I did. So again, thank you guys kindly for watching this one. Please let me know your key takeaways on the Mets front on your way out in the comments down below, not only on Lindor, but Vientos, Baty, Sproat, Alvarez, Prospect Report, Jose Urena, and everything in between. Thank you guys so much again. I will see you all for our post-game coverage, hopefully after a series win against the St. Louis Cardinals this Saturday. We'll be live right after that ball game, and then I will be locked in for NBA playoffs for the remaining of the evening from there. Thank you guys again. See you all later today at the time of recording this, and let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.